Whenever I get the message from the Healthy store, hey Ella, Narimi is giving us new palettes, I'm here like, oh boy, tell me more. And Narimi gave us 2 new palettes. I think the last collection that the brand brought out had 3 or 4 different palettes, and this time she blessed us with 2. One is called the One-Eyed Count, and the other one is Pegasus Night. Healthy Store offered one of these palettes to me in PR, and I decided to go with the Pegasus Night, so this is the one that I got in PR, but I also bought the One-Eyed Count, but that one I bought myself. And we're starting with the One-Eyed Count palette. First of all, let's take just the beautiful look here at the cover art, and let me open this one for you so you can see the full art. It's so beautiful. Ignore the sticker, that's from me, because otherwise I might forget at some point what palette this is by Narimi. And the outside design here is an absolute mirror of what you get in the color story here inside. You have some brightness, but also some chalky colors in there. These are disrupted by these 3 shades here, Dagger, Jade, and Fur. Fur is, let me spoil you, one of the most beautiful glitchy golden green shades that I probably have in my collection. Now let's take a look at the swatches here. In the One-Eyed Count you have 3 shimmer shades or 3 glitter shades or holochrome, multi-chrome shades, however you want to call them. And the mattes, as always, stunning. And I know that some people don't believe this, but these swatches here, they are A, made with a swatch sticker, but B, I did not tap back. I just took the finger, put it once in the pan, and then I was able to fill out the complete swatch stencil part with that. While with other eyeshadows, usually, especially in these swatch sticker stencil things, I have to dip back in so that I can fill out the complete swatch. But this one, Narimi mattes are so incredibly pigmented and nice, you do not need to dip back. Here in the video, I really tried to capture the beauty of these shimmer shades, but it is quite hard to do so. Now let's talk about the Pegasus Night palette. Same here, let me give you a close-up of the artwork that you have on the palette. Again, ignore the sticker because I need that, otherwise I forget the shade name or the palette name. The color story that you have in here is not as similar to the whole vibe that you see on the outside of the palette. I see some of the yellow, maybe I also would say I see some of the orange, but actually this is, I would say, the bright sister of the One-Eyed Count. This has a very, very interesting composition of shades. Just when you look at Bandage, this milky, I don't know, orange lemonade shade, Holy Sword, and Warhorse, which, by the way, I think has a typo in here. But overall, it's still kind of a desaturated color story with some pops of desaturated pastels. And here in the swatches, you can also see the beautiness of these wonderful mattes. The shimmers are incredibly beautiful, and that one shade is what I'm wearing here on my eye now, is a holographic shade, and I cannot get enough of these. In this palette, by the way, you have 4 shimmers and the others are mattes. And here you also have them side by side so that you can see what the difference between those are. And while I initially thought that their color stories, maybe except from some very specific shades, are quite similar, seeing them side by side and seeing what looks I was able to create with these palettes, I don't think that anymore. So in this video, I create 2 looks with each palette, and we're starting with the One-Eyed Count. And at the end, of course, you get my final thoughts of this. If you want to grab one of these or both or anything else from Narimi or anything else from Sea Beauty in general, make sure to check out Look Healthy Store. You can save 12% with my code ELLAGRAM, which, by the way, usually stacks on top of their sales. But now let's head into the tutorial part and then the final review. We're starting with 2 looks with the One-Eyed Count palette, and I know I already showed you the beautiful artwork in the intro, but Can we please? I mean, can we please? Oh, the sticker here is mine because I have to write the palette name on it. It is so, so pretty. So for the first look, I start right away with the shade that I'm the most afraid of, and that is the green, the shade Jade. And I tap this on my outer V, and then I start to wiggle it into the crease, blend it up and out a little bit. I now go into the shade Silk, and I start to blend this here on the inner crease part. And then I blend it towards the center, and where it meets with Jade, I just wiggle it on top so that they both mix into each other. I now go into Wolf, and that one I use on the outer edges of both colors for a softer blend. I applied some glitter glue, and now I go into Dagger, beautiful gold. I start to tap this in the center, but yeah, the brush is not working. I switch to a more classic packing brush, and now I apply Dagger all over the lid. I now tapped softly back into Jade, and I am reapplying this here on the outer part. And now I'm also wiggling this along the complete crease. I now go into Jade again and smudge this along my lower lash line. And I also take a little bit of Wolf and use that slightly underneath for some more softness. For inner corner, I go into the shade Fur, which, from what I see in the pan at least, reflects green, turquoise, and even a little bit pink. So I'm curious what this is now on the eye. So let's apply, and it's bright green, yellowy. And here we have the first finished look. On the lips, I'm wearing the Fenty Gloss Bomb. Yeah, Universal in the shade Diamond Milk. This look, you might can guess it. Not 100% my taste. I just wish that I did it a bit different. I do like the combo, and I think that weirdly looking blue matches very, very well with the Jade shade, but there is something that throws me a bit off with this look because it is this unbalanced feeling that I at least have between these desaturated, more misty looking colors and then this very, very olive toned gold on the lid. But quality wise, this is no critique. It's just a critique against my way of pairing eyeshadows. I wish I did something else, but it is what it is now. So let's do now look number 2. For look number 2, I go into the shade Ring. And that one I start to blend in the inner crease part and then bring it outwards and a little bit towards the brow. I then go into Patch and blend this here on the outer third of the lid and crease, and then I just keep on blending to mix it with Ring and to also blend it out for a little blown out look. I now go into the shade Prey and I apply this all over the lid. I definitely recommend using a silicone brush and not regular brushes for these shimmers because they are on that flaky side. But now I committed to the brush, so I'm gonna do it. But a silicone paddle brush is definitely the better way to go here. Or if you're completely crazy, use the finger. For the lower lash line, I'm starting with ColourPop's Amethyst Hour, a nice, very pale lilac-y liner shade, and I line my waterline with that. I now tap into Patch and apply this on the lower lash line, but only the outer 2/3. Then I pick up Fig and I start blending this in the center, bringing it inwards and then outwards. And for the inner corner highlight, I take Fur again. I think this is going to break very, very interesting with the whole look. So let's apply fur in the inner corner. That is such a cool contrast here. And here we have now the second finished look. On the lips, I decided to go with the Haus Labs PhD Lip Glaze in the shade Fig. This second look, of course, I like much more than the first look. The first look, something was throwing me off just with the jade color, and within further using this palette throughout 2025, before I do my final ranking of 25, I really need to experiment with this palette more and see how I can incorporate the jade shade. My idea actually is maybe do a two-toned look with this, so jade all over the lid, softly blended out, and then dagger or fur even on the lid for the shimmer. But Narimi palettes in general have at least one shade in them always that I find very confusing, and for this palette it is the jade shade. I can totally live with this. This is not a quality issue, but this makes me rank the color story quite low. But my final ranking, my final rating of the palette you will see at the end of the video, because now you get two looks with the Pegasus Night palette. Honestly, I feel a bit lost with this color story, although I prefer it over the One-Eyed Count palette, but I am unsure where this look is going to lead me, because I really want to incorporate Bandage, this pastel-y, graphite orange, but also War Horse, although I think this might has a typo, because it spells Warhores, but I think the E and the S, they're switched, so if that is a typo and if that is a special thing in my palette, I'm happy. But I guess if you look at, I think this is just a typo. But I feel a bit, what should I do with this palette? You know what? I do what I always do. I just let it flow. So I tap right into Bandage and I start to blend this on the inner crease part. And then I build it up a little bit and bring it through the complete crease as far as the shadow goes. Ooh, that looks very dry. But that could also be my eye, because they are super dry right now and I am just slugging my eyelids currently in moisturizer every night, but they look fairly dry at the moment. So this shade here actually, yeah, it brings out the dryness. So I now go into Night Raid, and that one I place here on the outer part and slightly blend into the crease, but the brush is definitely not the right for that, so I'm going to blend this out in a second. Honestly, I'm questioning if it's really my eye that looks that dry, or if it is the new combo that I use to prime my eyes. So I'm still using my MAC paint pot because I want to pan the paint pot completely. I feel like this is going to be a big achievement. But you know that I set my primer, and I recently have been setting it with the Laura Mercier Secret Brightening Powder, and I have a feeling that this might be a little bit too dry for my eye areas, so for the lid at least, because on the under eye I really like it, but it is quite a drying powder, so I definitely will, with the next look, so with the last of the video, try something else for my priming setting. I feel like this is the reason this looks so dry and a tad bit patchy. I don't know what that is, but it has a vibe. I kind of like that. So I now go into Warhorse, but this time I learned my lesson. I use a silicone brush with this, and I start to apply this in the center of the lid. Yeah, this shade doesn't work with the silicone brush. Okay, let me switch to another one. Oh, that's much better. So I applied this now on the lid, mainly in the center, and I'm tapping it out towards the outside, and the most inner part, like the tiniest bit here, I keep bare for the inner corner highlight later because I want to connect them. And then I take, what was the name? Nitrate, that brownie shade, and I just reapplied here a little bit on the outer parts. I'm pretty sure it is my priming and setting routine. Honestly, I had the same issue not too long ago with the Viseart Petite Cool Matte, and I never had that. The shades literally flaked off my eye, and it was not my eye. And it also was not the eyeshadow, because I never ever had this, but I'm pretty sure it is that. I'm now just blending a little bit more with the matte shades. So I'm just going to reapply some of the pastel yellow here from Bandage for a smooth, soft transition from that light inner part to that dark outer part. I'm really digging this. I want to keep the light theming on, so I take ColourPop's Honey Nude. It's a skin colored liner, and I'm just brightening the waterline with that. Now I take Nitrate and I carefully blend that on the outer half. And then I take Bandage and I blend this starting in the center, bringing it inwards and also a little bit below the Nitrate shade. I take whatever is left here of Nitrate on that brush and I blend that also on the rest of the lower lash line. I feel like that pastel yellow is a little bit too pastel, so it looks quite weird applied like that. So I just fill it up, and whatever is left I now use to smooth everything. For the inner corner highlight, I go into Holy Sword. Wait, isn't it Sword? Holy Sword? Yeah, it's Sword. The W is silent. And I use that shade on my inner corner, but I'm also connecting it to the lid. And I'm filling in what we left bare when we did the lid shade. That is a very, very interesting color. Also, the formula of this shade is a little bit different. It's a little bit harder pressed and less initially flaky. When you apply a lot of pressure, it will flake up, but the initial tap is different to the other shades we tried so far. Weirdest description of a color I will ever make, but this is a cool toned yellow, I think, because there is some sort of blue mixed in that it leans towards a green, but it is not green yet. So this definitely, for me, at least when I look at it, is a definition of a cool toned pastel yellow, which is very weird. And here you have the finished look. On the lips I'm wearing is a Maya Lip Lac in the shade Lotus. This is a combo that, if it wasn't in this palette laid out like that, would not have done. And I don't know why I haven't yet, because pastel yellow or pastel soda looking shades combined with dusty cool toned browns, I maybe have to pull out my Sickly Sweet palette after this video. Very excited now for the last look. Now let's do the look that I'm actually the most excited about, because the palette has a shade here called Silver Hair, and you saw the swatch in the intro. I really wanna cover myself in this, so I will focus on the blues and create hopefully a great look. By the way, I prepped my eye now different. I applied the MAC Paint Pot as always, but instead of setting this with the Laura Mercier powder, I set it with the powder that I put in my focus box. This is the Florasis Airbrush Tinted Pressed Powder, and I hope that this will now change the application a bit. So I maybe incorporate the Bandage shade at some point, although Pearl is also very, very pastel-y, so we will see, but I'm pretty sure that this solved my issue with some matte eyeshadows. So I go right into Star, and I start to blend this on the outer crease part, and then I bring it inwards, but not all the way, and blend it also upwards. I now go into Pearl. That one I just on the inner crease part, and then I blend it outwards to mix it with that other shade that I immediately forgot the name of. This is pastel-y too, but not as dry, so I'm really questioning if it was the powder that I set the primer with. I'm pretty sure it was that, because this is formula-wise, like feeling-wise, the same pastel formula as the Bandit shade, but this goes on so much better. Not that Bandage didn't go on well, but it looks better. I think that describes it more, because I literally could see dry cracks of eyeshadow flaking off the eye, and it's not happening here. I also go into Nitrate again, and that one I dust here on the outer V and outer crease for my depth. I feel like the Nitrate shade could make also a really good contour for even me, but it has to be less pigmented. I applied some glitter glue, and now let's pick up this holographic dream called Silver Hair, and I start to tap this in the center of the lid. Oh my God. I'm now bringing it outwards too, but not too much. And also a little bit inwards. But once again, I leave the most inner part bare, because I will connect this with the inner corner highlight. Okay, I decided to bring it all the way out, but I will cover a little bit with the Nitrate again. So I tap back into Nitrate, and now I'm just covering a tiny corner here and blend it up a bit. I also tapped into, I think it was Scar. Did I say that right in the beginning? I feel like I didn't, but I tapped back into Scar, into that blue, because a lot of it just got covered, and I slightly tap it back on in that center area and mix it back and forth with the other two shades. And here we have now the finished look on the lips I chose to wear today. The Fenty Beauty lip gloss oil thing in the shade Miss Jellyfish. The look is exactly what I had in mind. Absolutely, 100%. I love this. The only choice that I regret is actually the blush and highlight, because I feel like it's a little bit clashing. Otherwise, I just went with the more pastel-y bright flow. Oh, and this here, I don't know, can you tell? It's not dirt. My contour went on super patchy because I was a little bit too excited and I applied too much, and then I was too dumb to blend it, and then I just made it worse, and now I just live with that. So please ignore that. So let's talk first about the one-eyed count palette that I was not so keen on color story wise. I made some little notes here so that I don't forget. I rank this in my category of quality a 9 out of 10. The reason is quite simple. The shimmers are not what you buy a Narimi palette for, because for me, for my personal taste, I'm not a fan of them. They are too squishy, too oily, too wet, too flaky, but I can make them work with some extra effort. You buy a Narimi palette for these insane mattes, and that's why it's not a 10 out of 10, it's a 9 out of 10 because of the shimmer quality. It's not my cup of tea, but I love the way they look once you put that little bit more effort into the application. The color story, I give this a 7 out of 10, and the reason I said already, it's the Jade shade. That one is just, in my opinion, a little bit misplaced. I don't really know what to do, and I have a cat hair somewhere here on my face, and it's driving me nuts. That Jade shade was replaced by a, I don't know, maybe a gray? I would have loved this so much more, but the green, although it makes sense together with Dagger, it's just not for me. Personal excitement wise, I rank this at an 8 out of 10, although I don't really like the Jade shade in here. I am still in a good excitement mood when I look at the palette because of the rest of it. That gives this palette an overall rating of 8.0, and that is in line with the Charlotte Tilbury Beautyverse 2023, for example, and the Adept Cosmetics Element 115. Now for the Pegasus Night palette, same here. I give this quality-wise a 9 out of 10. The thing is, these shimmers here are also in the flaky squishy side, but they are a little bit different. Holy Sword, for example, is a little bit harder pressed, so it does not oil flake off so easy as Warhorse, for example. And Silver Hair is, I would say, it's basically just a dried pigment pressed down with some mixing component so that it stays here in a pan. Not my favorite formula because it feels squishy, oily, and dry at the same time. Very weird, but I like the outcome of it, so I can live with that. And as I said, I don't mind putting a little bit of extra effort into these. The color story I rank at an 8.5 out of 10. It's again not perfect. What in my opinion saves this color story a lot is the nitrate shade. That looks just like nothing here in the pan, but it just has the perfect cool undertone in it that just transforms the looks. Even here with the more blue look, it just gave that look that extra bit of depth, that extra bit of specialness that I in terms of mattes, don't get me wrong, because the real specialness comes from the shimmers, but it just transforms the looks, and especially that combo with Bandage and Nitrate. Oh my god, I loved that look. So that's why 8.5 out of 10. And my personal excitement is actually also at an 8 out of 10. Mainly for the fact that I look at this palette and I'm lost. I'm really lost what to do. I really need some time to get inspired, but once I'm in there, I'm digging it. It means that Pegasus Night overall scores an 8.5 out of 10, and that is in line with, for example, Anthemy Icy Ferret, Huda Beauty Icy Nude, or the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Ice Moonlight. So the burning question, of course, is which one do I recommend? Honestly, I recommend both, but it comes down a lot to your style and your preference of color story. If neither of these are for you, maybe check out the other Narimi palettes. They maybe speak to you. If both speak to you color story wise and you are sitting here and like, oh my god, I have 1,000 ideas what to do with the jade shade, then go for this. If you have 1,000 ideas to go with this one and you know exactly what to do every day with that milky orange yellow, then go for that one. And if you like both, go for both. And if none of these speak to you, then don't do it. But in my personal opinion, I do like them both, each for what they are. It's not my preferred color story, but these palettes, they force me a little bit to maybe break out of my scheme. So I'm very, very open to new color stories that maybe at first glance do not really speak to me. Quality-wise, it just holds up with Narimi. They are a great investment in my opinion. They are a great choice to use, but I always say that they are not 100% beginner friendly. So as always, of course, thank you so much to Look Healthy Store for sending over one of these palettes. The other one, as said, I bought myself. I am really, really happy that I have them both now and that I can put them now to my Narimi collection. And I'm very, very excited what Narimi is planning for the rest of 2025 and what she's going to surprise us with. As always, please let me know your thoughts down below. I'm very curious how you feel about the palettes. Are they speaking to you, or are you just like me and being like, not too sure, but it also is kind of tempting. Curious to hear what you have to say. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to miss out any of the other upcoming videos, and I'll see you soon. Oh, and if you want to buy these, check out Look Healthy Store and save 12% with my code ELLAGRAM.